So, the next point is, the Prophet ﷺ said fasting is a protection, an impregnable fortress from the fire. So Junnah, he says fasting is literally a shield. That's why I've got that image of a shield there. And so what we're going to look at here now is some of the wisdoms of fasting. The Prophet ﷺ described fasting as a form of protection. How is it a form of protection? And notice he's saying a protection. So I would say, this is my interpretation here, is that it's a protection physically, in this world it's a protection, but it's also a protection for you in the next life as well. Okay, so it has many degrees, fasting. It has physical benefits, mental benefits, and spiritual benefits, and this worldly benefits and otherworldly benefits. Okay? So my question here is, why do we fast? So I'm going to throw that as an open-ended question to people. What motivates us basically to give up food, drink and sex and sleep? You think most people in the modern age who aren't Muslims think we're a bunch of nutters, and then not only that, we fast in some of the hardest time of the year. Why on earth do these weirdos do this? Okay, because it's quite alien. The concept of fasting is now becoming a bit more trendy, isn't it? Fasting, the concept of fasting, but that's 1 or 2 days. We do the whole whack. Yeah, we don't go halves, we do 30. So what's the benefits? Why do we do this? Which people call this today, they call it a dry fast. Have you heard this concept? You've got dry fasts and you've got wet fasts. A dry fast is where you are avoiding drink and food. And there's a hard dry fast where you don't even expose yourself to water. So you don't have showers, you don't wash your hands, nothing. That's an extreme. This isn't an Islamic fast, I'm saying, but people do these. They call it, and they only do it for 1 day anyway. So it's not that they, but who knows? In the medieval period, they might have done it for quite some time, because we've heard about their stinky little pursuits. So we've got a hard dry fast, and we've got a soft dry fast. We as Muslims, we fast a soft dry fast, because we expose ourselves to water, that's not a problem, but we don't consume water as well as food, and so this is what we call a soft dry fast. Does that make sense? And then obviously some of the fasts that non-Muslims are more familiar with is like wet fasting, where they don't eat food but they're allowed to drink. When we were kids at school, we fasted for Ethiopia and stuff like that, to raise money, and but we were allowed to drink in the day. And so this is what we mean by fasting. And now this is becoming quite popular. I was looking online. Dry fasting has become quite popular in the wider community as well. Why? What's the reasons that people might fast? Can you give me some? Yeah, some people are doing it as a detox. So a physical detox. Okay, well done. So for health benefits, basically. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sumu tasihhu." Okay, fast, and you will find good health. Okay. What's other reasons we fast? Yeah? Sorry? Save money. I didn't even think about that one. Well done, that's not down. I need to add that one to my list. Economical reasons. Yeah? I don't want to spend any money, or I haven't got any money. So that's and some people actually, it's interesting, in the modern economical situation we're in, people try to argue that Ramadan is actually economically disastrous, because in a consumer society we need people constantly consuming. But I don't know where you come from. Muslims spend more in Ramadan than they do out Ramadan. They proper go for it. So I don't know what country, what super religious Muslim community they're speaking of. What's other reasons people fast?
You say people, is that Muslims or just general?
Yeah, just general. Yeah. So what you might fast for, what anyone might fast for. Go on.
To practice maybe the austerity.
Yes.
Zuhud.
Sorry? Zuhud, yeah, like asceticism. So it's an element of showing your resolve and strength, and to demonstrate your lack of need. Okay, this is practiced by many traditions, isn't it? And we're going to look at that. Is that people want to demonstrate they've got some self-control, and also that they, as if to get to some sort of godlike state, because God has no need of anything. And so you take, obviously it's not literal, but you take a sense of, you know, experiencing a sense of where you don't have any need for anything in one aspect of your life. Obviously we need breath and we need sleep, but you practice one area where you try to just do without, as if you're not in need. And people used to try to induce these states of like divine states, experiencing God through fasting. It was really probably delirium from, you know, lack of food and water, and they would go into these states of fainting and literally have visions. Okay, but people used to do this sort of stuff. Okay, any other reasons you might fast? Yeah.
Increasing the time.
Yeah, good, excellent. Yeah, it's a good one. Increasing time, because you notice when you fast how much we fill our time with habits, a routine. So you know when you get up in the morning, you think, next breakfast. Hey, have my breakfast. Then you you go to work, and the next thing you're thinking about is what? Lunch. Your day revolves around eating. Then you go, and then you have your little break where you have your Kit Kat, okay? And then get home, roti's on the table, you know, can't wait, or jawal, whatever's your poison. And then, so you spend your whole day basically looking forward. This is really important because the Western world is very much, from the Enlightenment, has focused very much on progress. And the problem with, we're not dismissing progress. Progress is part of life and it's important to have that. But when it becomes a be and end all, just always the next, you can't be present because you're always just thinking about what's next. Does that make sense? You can't live in the now because it's always about what's the next thing I've got to do. I'm sure many of you can relate to that because of our education system, is that especially I think men really suffer this, and women will as well, but men, it's very, very easy for us to fall into that pattern of just being achievers, but not ever appreciating what you've achieved. And then we get a real crash when we get married, and she says, you don't spend any time with me, you know, let's just be here and stare into one another's eyes. And you're like, you're what? You know, I'll go and fix the toilet or something for you, but you know, I don't see the practical benefits of looking into your eyes, my love. Okay, yeah, you might do that for the first, you know, few months of marriage, but because the biochemical cocktails are still kicking in. But after they wear off, then you don't see the benefit. But this is because we live in this world of constantly having to, and it's destroying us to be, you know, because we can't be present and we can't be there for people, our most loved ones. And so what fasting does is it breaks your patterns. So you wake up in the morning and you think, great, breakfast. Oh, I'm not having breakfast. Oh, what do I do? And you start panicking because you built your whole day around these habits. And then, oh, it's all right, lunch. No lunch. Oh my God, what am I going to do at work? In the lunch break, everyone else is going to have their little, you know, what are they eating for lunch? You know, what they got. And you've got nothing. So you've got to now think about what you're going to fill your time with, and it makes you realise how much time you really do have in the day, and how much time we actually spend our time just filling it with, you know, we eat because of the time comes, not because we're hungry. And that's a really good lesson to learn, is you become more, and instantly you become more attuned to your body, because we live in a society that's very much in our heads. Yeah, we're like these machines, you know, our body's just a machine and I'm really just my brain. And we're disconnected from our bodies, and that's why we're not present a lot of the time. This is a huge topic, but what fasting does on a very practical level is it starts making you realise, you know, I don't really need to eat as much as I eat, and I really eat out of habit or to fill up that void. Okay, how many of us do that? We eat just to fill the void of boredom, or to fill the void of just being introspective and just spending some time with being present with ourselves. And fasting does that. So, any other benefits of fasting? What's that?
Delayed gratification.
To delay gratification, yeah. I don't...
Yeah, because you won't see any spiritual results in this world.
Sorry?
You wouldn't see any spiritual results in this world.
Ah, excellent. This is a really good point. Is that obviously part of a fundamental aspect of our faith is that we might not, you know, we're acting, aren't we? We're putting effort in, but we might not always see the results until far later, sometimes not even in this life, in the next. And so fasting is a practical, just a short practical exercise in delaying gratification as well. I think you're coming from a slightly different angle, aren't you? So you're looking at that, and that you delay and you get benefit. So you're experiencing that because you eat when the sun goes down. So you've managed to hold off that desire. And also, so you can delay your gratification. You don't have to act on impulse, which is very, very important. It's one of the most important lessons you can learn in life. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the marshmallow test. Are you familiar with that? So there's different experiments that were done. They took these kids, these young kids, and said, you can have one marshmallow now, or if you can have a bit of self-restraint and hold back for, I don't know, 20 minutes or an hour, I don't know when it was, you can have two. I mean, I'd like the whole packet, so that's the example I use. I want the whole packet. So some kids just said, give me that marshmallow, you know. Other kids said, I'm up for the challenge. Look, one marshmallow or a whole pack of marshmallows? What makes more sense? Okay, so the others were able to kick in the cognitive capacities to realize that it's a lot more fruitful for me to wait. But the waiting's not easy, is it? So what did they do? Some of them sat there and started picking their nose and eating it. Okay, that was one way they delayed gratification. They satiated themselves with bogies. Okay, others sang tunes to distract themselves. Others sat there, laid on their back and tried to fall asleep until the time was over. Basically, the kids used all sorts of different techniques, the ones that were trying to delay gratification. Eventually, once the test had been finished, they tracked these kids throughout their lives up until adulthood, and they found that the kids that could exercise self-restraint, they were far more successful in their school life, in their work life, in their personal lives. Because why? Because life's all about, I want to smack him in the face, but I'm not going to. It's like holding yourself back. Do you have the ability to hold yourself back, to practice this, which defines us as human beings, to not act on impulse? Animals generally act on impulse. Okay, they're tired, they sleep. They want sex, they have sex. They want to eat, they have sex, they eat. Whilst human beings, we have the ability to think. You know, well, if I were to do that, what would that lead to? I think that, it's probably better for me not to do that. That's what defines us as a human being. And so fasting is a very practical aspect of that, is that you see something and you not act on it. Another thing is that our feelings and our thoughts don't define us as who we are. You know, a lot of people say, well, in society today, people say, well, I have these feelings, so I have to act upon them because they define who I am. You know, in sexuality, this is definitely the case. They define me. But we learn as Muslims, fasting teaches us, no, you can have the thoughts, you can have the emotions, but they're not, you are not the thoughts, and you are not the emotions. They pass through you. And that doesn't mean and there's very practical ways in dealing with that, and fasting's one of them. It's one act of self-restraint, is that you build up, the more you practice something, we know now through neuroplasticity that the brain can change. It's like plasticine, it's not fixed, so it can adapt. And the more you exercise self-restraint, the stronger it gets, the more resilient it gets. Okay, within, some, as I said, there's exceptions to this, but that's the general principle. So that gives us hope we can change through exercising daily. And that's what's so beautiful about 12 steps. In 12 steps, if anyone's familiar with, Alcohol Anonymous, these like recovery programs, they teach you, I'm taking each step, like the concept, the two fundamental principles of that is, one is that you will never fully recover. We're all recovering. Does that make sense? In our addictions, and we've all got addictions, some people's addictions are more dysfunctional than others. Politicians are addicted to power, and that's very destructive. But it's not stigmatized like an alcoholic or a druggie. And the point is that you probably might always suffer from that addiction, but you don't have to succumb to it. And we're taking each day as it comes. But you're not fooling yourself. You're not saying I'm over it. Because we know from it, all of us probably experience in our life, is that you can slip back very easily. You know, if you have a diet and you cut out sugar, for example, cut out some fatty foods, you can manage it. But how easy is it to go back? Very, very easy. And so you just don't fool yourself. You don't expose yourself to circumstances where you know you'll succumb. You say, I know my weaknesses. I'm not Superman, and so I'm not going to act upon that. And you realise I'm taking each day as it comes. You know, because a lot of the time it's an all or nothing, isn't it? When am I going to completely recover? Never. Oh, well, what's the point then? No, you just take each day as it comes, and I'm recovering, and I'm tracking my progress. So fasting is a very practical aspect here. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged young men who are being overwhelmed by their sexual urges to do what? If they weren't able to marry, to fast. So either you channel it towards something that's healthy, i.e. marriage, you work towards that, so you get the means, okay, and whilst you haven't got the means, you fast. So that's showing that it curbs sexual desire. That was another reason people fasted traditionally. But we have to also be aware that foods, people who try to use fasting to curb sexual desire, it's not just about fasting, you have to be careful of the foods you eat as well. So they talk about red meats and dairy products and stuff like this. These things generally encourage sexual desire, and so it's not just about fasting, it's also about being careful and conscious of the foods that you're eating. Okay, so these are some of the other things. So why would people give up food and drink? First of all, is empowerment, because you feel a sense of power, you've achieved something, yeah? And interestingly, women that suffer from anorexia, is actually a form of empowerment, because generally women who fall into anorexia are women who, and men as well, but it's more common in women, it's because they feel such a lack of sense of control in their life. The one thing they can control is their body. You know, they're controlled by the dictates of society and the sort of the pressures of other women or of men or of their family, expecting them to be a certain weight and stuff. And now there's this movement amongst the women's community of being proud of their bodies. I mean, it's gone to one extreme. Now they're doing these cycling naked to show that this is my body, I'm proud of it. I mean, from one extreme to the other. So all these women are now like basically taking selfies of themselves in their underwear and setting it and say, this is my body, love it or leave it, you know. Which is basically to show, because obviously the media is trying to portray women have to be of a certain physical build. And so as the people do that, fast for empowerment, they fast for health. We said that. And now people do this like 5 to 2 diet, where they do 2 days a week. That's, even the non-Muslim community do this. You've got these intermittent fasting as well. So we know that fasting's for health. It's because when we fast, our body's resting. I like to think of, did anyone used to read The Dandy when they were kids? Okay? There was the numbskulls. Do you remember the numbskulls? There was this guy who had a body and he had little men in different compartments in his body. Do you remember this? So, no? Okay, you missed out, okay? Go on YouTube and you can probably find it. You can find anything these days. So the idea is that there's the cartoon, the comic strip was about, in the body there's like different compartments. There's the brain compartment, the heart compartment. They've got little men that are working and doing the work. So the idea is that they're always going to have to be busy when you're putting in energy. Is that? Because they have to send it to the right areas of the body. So when we actually fast, they can relax and go, oh, thank God he's stopped eating, he's stopped drinking. Now we can actually start doing a bit of decorating. You know, they can actually start repairing the body. So the idea is that when we fast, our body is now has got the opportunity to repair. And some say, Allah knows best, I was doing a bit of research, that just fasting 1 day does a year's repairing of the body. Allah knows best. Okay? But we know regardless that it's definitely restorative, is that when we fast, it's incredibly beneficial for the body. So you know when your tummy is growling, you might think, oh, Buddha, it wants some food. You go, my baby. But what it might be growling, it might be saying, thank God. Why are you interpreting the growling in your tummy as like it needs something? You know, it could mean that it's relaxing, like thank God, and now I can repair myself. So and this is like, I like to take this approach with fasting, a somatic approach, working with the body, is that tune into those sensations, because we're always wanting to mask discomfort, aren't we, in our lives? You know, I've got a headache, take a pill, okay? Or I feel a bit insecure, watch a movie. We're always trying to distract ourselves. Fasting is an opportunity to just be open to those discomfort. And when we do that, when we're open to comfort and discomfort in our lives, we generally feel more we feel our vitality comes back because we're accepting both sides of life. And so fasting is a means to do that. It's about just being open to whatever is. Mindfulness, we said it brings you in the present moment. If your stomach's grumbling, then you're there, you know, where else? Okay, and so you being present. Personal atonement, people fast to forgive. Okay, seek forgiveness. Thanksgiving, why do people think Thanksgiving? They've got blessings, so they eat to celebrate that. And then in times of hardship, even non-Muslim communities, in history, when there was times of hardship, there was famine, you think it'd be crazy. In times of famine, guess what they did? They fasted. They didn't have much option, really, but the idea was that maybe this is God's anger, and so we're going to fast in order to remove God's wrath. And so when there's difficulty happening in the community, maybe it's because of our shortcomings, and so we're going to demonstrate our feelings of remorse about what's happened by fasting, and so with the hope that maybe God's favour might come upon us. That was another reason. Gratitude, something's gone good in your life, so you fast to give thanks for it. To protest. Gandhi's the most famous of that, doesn't he? He stopped eating whilst the people were fighting in his country, and because he wanted passive, not passive, it was active, but active what's the word? Huh? Non-violent protesting, which was active, it wasn't passive. They were standing out and walking out and doing things, but he didn't want them to retaliate. And so he fasted, didn't he, until they stopped doing that. So that spiritual awakening, we mentioned that, and reducing sex drive. What's the word for fasting anyway in Arabic? So you've got two words, well, two main words, there's many words, but Sawm and we have Siyam, okay? And what does the word Sawm actually mean? Because it doesn't mean fasting. That's a nuance of fasting. But what's it literally mean? Does anyone know? Huh? That's Ramadan. Yeah. Ramadan is about... Sorry? Exactly, yeah. It means to abstain. It just means to not do something. And so we have in the Quran that Maryam alayhi salam was said that she made an oath to Allah not to... she made a sawm, basically, which means to stop... She refrained from speech. She abstained from speaking. And we even find, even today, in some Christian denominations, they actually have like this type of fasting where they don't speak. And the Buddhist communities do it as well, don't they? Like these silent retreats. So it does mean abstain, and it was the first, some of the scholars say it's the first command, fasting was the first command that was ordained for us, even when we were still in the garden. Because Adam was told to abstain from the tree. So that's a fast, you see. So some of the scholars look at it from that. And so the Christian, you know, we always hear about Christians fasting, and we say, that's not a fast. What, you're giving up chocolate? What sort of fast is that? So the reality is, from a linguistical point of view, it is a fast. It's abstaining from something. And so what we also learn from that is that fasting is more about refraining from doing things than doing things. Because what we often find in Ramadan is people try to do loads and loads of good acts, don't they? And they don't forget that they should that, and there's nothing wrong with that. We do say try to exert yourself in Ramadan, do what you can, but the main priority of Ramadan is actually abstaining from things. And so abstaining from bad language, abstaining from lying, abstaining from backbiting, abstaining from eating, abstaining from wasting your time. The focus is on not doing, because fasting's a really weird act if you think about it, because it's not an act. You're not doing anything. Okay, so it's not really an act. It's a refraining from an act. So it's a bit strange like that. And Allah says in the Quran about it, doesn't He? He says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun." He says, "Oh, you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you, just as it has the nations, the people before, to show that this is an ancient tradition, fasting, going all the way back. You'll find every culture had some practice of fasting. It was just, you'll find it in nearly every culture. And it's sort of lost its fashion in the modern age, but now it's on its way back now. It's on a comeback because of people looking at the health benefits. And why though? Why do we fast? We fast لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may find, or you may imbue, you may characterize yourself with, now what's the word in Arabic? Taqwa. So what does taqwa mean? Taqwa, you've translated it as God consciousness, but literally taqwa means what?
It is another English word to translate.
Yeah, I mean, what it literally means, so it comes from the word from waqayaqi, which is wiqaya, and wiqaya is a shield. So we see that the Prophet ﷺ described fasting as a shield. How's fasting a shield? In what ways does it, well, what's a shield do? It protects you, it puts a barrier between you and something. So how does fasting put you? Well, first and foremost, it puts your barrier between you and your dindins. So in that way, what else?
So in the hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud, when he says it's a shield, right? So he's referring to the urges, it subsides the urges, right?
Of the urges, yeah. So it protects you from, so it creates a sense of self-control, is that where you're going? So because it protects you from committing sin, from that perspective, okay? You can say it protects you from the hellfire, as the Prophet ﷺ explained there as well, as a shield between you and the hellfire, because what personifies someone from going to hell is that they have some self-control. They put off something for another day. Instead of acting on that, they decide not to, and that imbues you with a sense of self-control, and so that you end up being able to protect yourself from falling to sin, which ends up you protecting yourself from the hellfire, from that. Obviously, as the brother was saying, it's about God consciousness, i.e. because you're mindful of God. Like, when you're fasting, you become more conscious of what you're doing, don't you? Because you don't want to ruin your fast. You say, and then we have that famous hadith, if someone tries to fight with you, you remind them, I'm fasting, I don't want to engage in this. So you say, you take on a certain higher, you take what's the word? You have a higher standard for yourself when you're fasting. It's just, you have that more sense of self-consciousness and consciousness of God. I lost my chain of thought there, I've had a brain seizure. Where were we going? So, yes, also is that whoever doesn't leave aside backbiting and lying, then Allah has no need of their fast. I.e., the idea, and that doesn't mean that the fast isn't valid, but it means that you've lost the spirit of the fast. The whole point of the fast is not just about refraining from eating, it's about being wary of what your tongue expels as well, utters. And so it makes you just conscious of what's right and what's wrong. It makes you conscious of falling into it as well. And so these are just the practical benefits of fasting. It imbues a sense of self-consciousness and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Allah has given us this. And then we looked at some of the benefits. We went through those. And then what are we spoke about the purposes why people fast. Now we look at what's the benefits to fasting. So we've mentioned these: presence of mind, self-control, ability to cope with discomfort, we mentioned that, repairing of the body, we mentioned that, and increasing energy and vitality. People say, hey, fasting increases energy and vitality. Not me, mate. I'm knackered when I'm fasting. But you do end up, once you adapt to it, you start to develop a sense of lightness in your body. And also you develop, as I mentioned before, a sense of consciousness about what your body needs and what it doesn't need. Because, as I said, we eat out of routine. But when you fast, you realize what your body can take. And what's funny enough about fasting, especially in these days, is that there's so little time to get food in, and you end up actually not wanting food. Like, that's what I found anyway, is that when they're so long, you've broken your fast and you just don't really feel like eating much more. And then you come to sahur, don't you? And if you're doing the really early fasts at times, which we will talk about in a bit, you really just can't seem to cram food in. And so you just become more and more aware of how little you really need. Appreciation of blessings in life, because that's why the Prophet ﷺ encouraged, if someone wants to be really hardcore and fast regularly, that they should do the fast of Dawood, i.e. you eat one day and fast the next. Don't fast all the time, because it defeats the purpose of fasting, because one of the purposes of fasting is to break the routine. So if you fast every day, it becomes your what? It becomes your habit and routine. So the whole point of fasting is to break that. And so outside of Ramadan, it's better, the best fast is to do, if you're going to do a really hardcore fast, is every other day, so you appreciate Allah's blessings, and you're grateful when you're eating it, and then when you're not, you acknowledge that there's discomfort as well. And that's what life's all about. It's about being open to discomfort and comfort. A lot of people in life, they just want to always be happy, don't they? If you always want to be happy in life, you're going to be a miserable toe rag, because it's impossible. You have to experience all kinds of emotions and be open to them. And then, how do we best apply ourselves from fasting? Take it easy. Remember, the body needs to rest when it's fasting in order to benefit, because it's repairing itself. So be very cautious of exercise. And in Ramadan, I was listening to some health coaches. They recommend, what happens in Morocco is, I've noticed, people in that last hour before fasting, breaking the fast, people are out there running and doing all sorts of things in Ramadan, okay? That's a possibility. Some people say they feel that burst of energy, or it just gets them through that last hour or 2 hours of the fast. Other people warn against that. They say you've got to be careful. And they say if you are going to do your routine exercise, it should be after, about an hour after you've broken your fast. But how on earth are you going to get that in this time of year? I don't know. But it is important to rest up and to try to go, tone down a bit in your day of what you usually do. And so if children, for example, who are fasting, it's best they try to get off PE and stuff like this if they can. Just so they don't want to exert themselves too much. Also, when breaking the fast, to take water and fruit on breaking the fast, or something light. Don't go straight into the salon. Okay, that's. I remember this story of someone told me they were in i'tikaf, and this uncle brought in these chicken wings and chicken legs. And this uncle, straight on breaking the fast, was chummeling down these chicken legs so much that he started choking on them. And everyone was really scared that, my God, the uncle's going to die. So they start slapping his back, and as they're slapping his back, he's putting another one in. So that's not how to break your fast, okay? Another one, I went to someone's house, and in Morocco they do this sometimes, but this was an Asian family in Bradford. And they put out all the salons straight away. And I can't do that. I literally can't eat like that. And I have to have something light, give myself about 15, 20 minutes, and then I have some food. And that's the healthy way to do it, because your stomach's not had any food. You've got to give it time. So there is I don't know how authentic the hadith is, but there's a narration about, and it's true, is that the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't break his fast on anything that had been touched by fire. And so fruit or something like that. You shouldn't eat something that's been cooked, because your stomach takes a lot more digestive power to break it down. So it should be something light that you're breaking your fast on, and then eat something. So this family put down all the food, and I said to them, I am sorry, I can't eat this until about 20 minutes. They all started smiling. They said, well, there won't be any left, mate. Okay. So I said, at least save me some dal. Let's always save you the dal. And they went for the meat. So but that's how to do it. In Morocco, sometimes they eat for about half an hour, and then they say, oh, yeah, well, let's pray then. Okay. The idea is you have something light, pray, and then come back and have some food. That's a lot more healthy for you. And then your suhoor, your sihri, it's good to get something heavy in there, okay? And whatever you like, if it's your, your prata power, or your porridge or whatever you do, that's the time to really eat heavy if you're going to eat heavy, so that it gets you through the day, okay? Let me just see if I've any questions about that. Yeah, someone's telling me about children sleep patterns. One of my friends, he's got a lot of young children, and they didn't fast all 30 days, but they fasted a lot. Even his youngster was about 5. And when they did choose to fast those days, which I say is I recommend for children to get in the habit, but you teach them they can break their fast if they really struggle. That's all. You're not saying they have to fast for the full days, but to get them in the habit as well, what he would do is he would get them to sleep when they came home. So they get a little bit of a sleep in the day, then they wake up, they break fast, and then they go back to bed after about an hour after Maghrib. So they prayed their Isha, and then they wake them up for suhoor again, and they pray Fajr quickly and go back to bed. Okay, that worked for him, for his kids. But as I said, different people's kids are different, because some struggle to get back to bed after they've fallen asleep. It takes them a while to get to sleep, and then they struggle to get back to sleep. So you just got to work out a pattern that works for them. But it's important they get that sleep in as much as they can. And we'll speak a bit more. I'll go a bit more into detail about how people can approach that. Yep, and it's really important in this time of the year when we're fasting as well, is that you listen to your bodies. A lot of people really push themselves in Ramadan. They're fasting throughout the day, and then they're hitting the 20 rakahs of Taraweeh, and you've got to know what your body can handle. And so that's why listen to your body, tune into your body. A lot of people don't have the ability to do this. This is why I practice a lot of somatic work, working with bodily sensations. If anyone's any mindfulness, like body scanning, like tuning into your body sensations. I feel, heat here, I feel a temperature, heat here, coldness here, heaviness here. This is what I mean by sensations. Tuning into your body, and if you're starting to feel the aches and stuff, just come off the gas and just relax. Know what your bodies can handle. And unfortunately, a lot of the elders, they really blitz themselves in Ramadan, and they've got health issues and stuff, and they really do themselves some damage. And so, as I said, Ramadan's not about, it is about pushing yourself a little, but not to a point where you damage your own health. So you've got to be cautious and take things slowly, especially in the first few days.